My name is Ayodeji Ujas. I'll be taking you through my project, which is titled Deploying of Web Stack Application. This is just like a baseline for deployment on AWS, Kubernetes, and Docker. And then this is just like a scenario of where a user can access the service using IP address or endpoint through the load balancer. We are going to set up Nginx as the load balancer, and then the load balancer is going to forward the request to the application server, which is the Apache Tomcat, and this is where our application, this is where our Java application will be running. And then we are going to use NFX. NFX is the shared storage, and then the application server is going to forward the message to the RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is the message broker, and then the message will now be forwarded to the memcache for database caching, and then it will catch the SQL query from the MySQL server. So we are going to be running this web stack application using Nginx, Tomcat, MySQL, and then RabbitMQ. Thank you very much as we go along. Okay, so this is the walkthrough of one of my projects, which is setting a web application stack using a multi-tier web application. And like I said, it's a baseline for other projects, which I will deploy on AWS, Docker, and Kubernetes. Okay, so the tools that we're going to use for this, we're going to use Hypervisor, which is VM by Oracle. We are going to use automation, which is Vagrant. And we are going to use CLI, which is Git Bash. And we are going to use IDE, which is Notepad or Sublime Text. So looking at this diagram, this is just like an architecture of our web stack application. This is the users where they are going to access the application server, which is the Tomcat Apache, and then they are going to access it. We are going to configure our Nginx to work as a load balancer. It's just to redirect the traffic, to redirect the traffic to our application server. And then we have the NFX, which is the storage, the shared storage. And then we have the RabbitMQ, which is the message broker. And then we have memcache, which is going to catch from our MySQL server. And MySQL server, as we all know, is the database for all the application server that we are running. So let's get started. So looking at the application, we need, like I said, we need the automation that we are going to use is the Vagrant. So this is our Vagrant file where we have all our services configured. So we are going to use VirtualBox. We are going to use virtual machines. We are going to use CentOS machine. So if you check through this code, it's a Ruby code. So we have our VMs, which is configured this CentOS for our Tomcat, which is the application server, and we configured this for the RabbitMQ, which is memcache, which catches from the MySQL. This is a message broker, sorry, and then the memcache catches from the MySQL. So we are using a CentOS machine for it too, and then the database itself, which is we're also using a CentOS machine for it. So please note, if you're doing this, you need to make sure this IP address is different from each other, because these services will be accessed using the IP address or the endpoint. So once this is set up, we'll go to our Git Bash, which is the CLI that I mentioned earlier. So we are going to do Vagrant up. Vagrant up is going to switch on all our virtual machines. It's going to turn it on, and then all the virtual machines is going to come up, because we have 5 virtual machines in our Ruby file that I just showed us now. So once you type Vagrant up, enter, it's going to bring it up. That's like switch on. So now we want to connect. So after switching on, you need to connect to the service you want to, the services you want to access. Remember, we have 5 services. We have the application, we have the Nginx, we have the RabbitMQ, we have the memcache, and then we have the database. So we are going to do Vagrant SSH, like, okay, take me to this application. So the first one we are going to do is to access the database. So if you're accessing the database, you do Vagrant SSH, the database. So the database is named DB01. Let me go down and do that again. Okay, DB01, can you see? So once you do Vagrant SSH DB01, that is our database machine. So once you get in, it will show you the last login details, and then sudo -i. That means you want to get to be the root user. If you are not a root user, you have limitations to applications that you can, limitations to commands that you can run on this machine. And then you have to cd into the project itself that we have, and then we're able to cd here into the project. We're able to set up the profile on the database, and that is the first thing we need to enable for this project. And then secondly, after setting up the database, we need to set up the repository that we are going to run the package from. So the repository is we are going to run yum install EPL release -y. That's to set up that's to set up repository on the database itself. Set up this MySQL server, and then we are going to do the RabbitMQ, which is the message broker. So we are setting it up from SSH RabbitMQ. So once we're able to get into the RabbitMQ, the message broker machine, we are going to set it up also. At the same time, we set up our Tomcat, which is our application server that we have our machine running on it. And then once we're able to do that, once we're able to set up the Docker machine, then we are going to configure our Nginx. Once we set up our Nginx as a load balancer for the routing of traffic, so we need to ensure that this is running fine. And then the first thing we need to do after all of this is done is to start our Nginx for us to be able to access the service on the browser. So once we start the service, we are going to enable the service, and then we check the status for this service. And then if you check the status, it should show this active and running. So once you have this active and running, then you check by using ifconfig to check the IP address of the Nginx that we are running. So if you check through this, the IP address for this is 192.168.56.11. So we'll go to our browser, we'll access it, and this is our web page that we deployed using. This is our web page that we deployed using the MySQL for the database of information, Memcache to catch from the database, RabbitMQ for the message broker, Tomcat for the application server, Nginx as the load balancer, and then the application build and deploy, which we use maybe, and the deployment, and we're able to deploy it. So this is the web page